Captain Eli Novak had seen many strange things during his years working on the edge of explored space. But nothing prepared him for the moment an alien princess, wild-eyed, trembling, utterly desperate, suddenly threw herself into his arms aboard the bustling neutral space station. The station was a chaotic blend of sounds and colors, merchants shouting over the hum of starships docking, traders from countless species bartering with animated gestures, and the constant flashing of lights from countless devices. Eli had been overseeing routine trade negotiations when he noticed the sudden disruption. The crowd parted quickly as the princess rushed through, her unusual form drawing curious and fearful glances from those nearby. Her skin was rough and mottled, her features unlike anything Eli had ever seen. Some would say ugly, but Eli sensed something deeper beneath her appearance. She clung to him with a grip so strong it was almost painful, and tears streaked down her face, glistening under the harsh station lights. For a moment, Eli simply stared, unsure whether to pull away or offer comfort. His natural instincts, too, help won over his confusion. Softly he asked what had caused such despair. The princess, her voice barely above a whisper, told him something so terrible that Eli felt a cold knot tighten in his stomach. She spoke of an empire, ruthless and merciless, one that had already destroyed countless worlds and was now turning its attention to her home. This empire's technology was beyond anything humanity or her species had seen, and it was closing in fast, aiming to wipe out her people and steal their knowledge. Many across the galaxy had turned away from her people, judging them by their strange and frightening looks rather than the strength of their minds or the value of their culture. She confessed that her mission was desperate. She had nowhere else to go and no one else to trust. Eli, a man who had faced countless dangers but never something so personal, felt the weight of her words sink deeply. His heart pounded with the realization that this was no ordinary plea for help. It was a call for alliance, for hope, and maybe even survival itself. The station around them faded into a blur as Eli took a deep breath and promised to stand by her side, even though the road ahead was unknown and fraught with danger. As they stood there, locked in that fragile moment of trust and fear, the seeds of a story much larger than either of them had imagined began to grow, a story of courage, unlikely friendship, and the fight to protect everything worth saving. In the vast, unforgiving galaxy, as the noisy crowds of the space station faded into the background, Vexra began to share the story behind her desperate flight. She explained how her homeworld, a distant planet called Jiren, was ruled by a council made up of the brightest minds of her species, known for their advanced technology and deep knowledge of the universe. But now, that very council was under grave threat. An alien empire, vast and powerful beyond anything humans had ever faced, was spreading across the stars like a dark storm. This empire was driven by a hunger for control and conquest, using weapons and machines far more advanced than anything in known space. Their goal was not just to conquer Jiren, but to erase Vexra's entire people from existence, wiping away their culture and history. The Empire wanted the secrets her people guarded, ancient, scientific discoveries that could change the balance of power across the galaxy. Vexra's voice trembled as she revealed that her mission to seek allies was born out of sheer desperation. Many civilizations had already closed their doors to her, blinded by prejudice and old rivalries, seeing only the strange, frightening faces of her people instead of the brilliant minds behind them. She had traveled light years, facing loneliness, fear, and rejection, yet still hoped that someone would listen and understand the urgency of her plea. Eli listened intently, the weight of her words sinking deep into his heart. The more he heard, the clearer it became that the danger was real and immediate. Despite knowing how perilous it was to involve himself in alien politics and wars, Eli felt a fierce protective urge rise within him, not just for Vexra, but for her people and the future of all who valued freedom. He thought about the countless species that might fall if this empire succeeded, about the darkness spreading silently through space. For a moment, he considered turning away, ignoring the call for help. But something stronger pushed him forward, belief in standing up for those who cannot protect themselves. A belief that courage and kindness could make a difference even against overwhelming odds. He promised Vexra that he would help her find allies and fight this threat. Their uneasy alliance was born not out of friendship or trust yet, but out of necessity and hope. Together, they began to plan their next moves. Knowing that the clock was ticking and that every moment counted in the battle to save a world, and maybe much more. The quiet determination in Eli's eyes reflected the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about loyalty, bravery, and what it truly meant to be a hero in a galaxy on the brink of darkness. Eli Novak and Princess Vexra set off into the endless expanse of space, traveling from one remote colony to another, their journey marked by uncertainty and the heavy weight of their mission. Each new world they visited was a test of patience and resolve. Many of the colonies were places forgotten by the major powers of the galaxy, inhabited by those who lived on the edges, outcasts, refugees, and communities abandoned long ago. When Eli and Vexra arrived, they were often met with suspicion and cold eyes. The alien leaders and citizens alike found it hard to trust the strange princess, whose appearance made many uncomfortable, a reminder of ancient conflicts and painful memories. Even when Vexra spoke of the coming danger, some dismissed her warnings as exaggerations or desperate lies, refusing to believe that an empire so powerful could be stopped. Others saw Eli and Vexra as troublemakers, unwanted meddlers in their fragile peace. The road was rough, filled with closed doors, harsh words, and quiet, lingering doubt. Yet, despite the rejection, Eli remained steadfast. His calm honesty and genuine belief in the truth of Vexra's story slowly began to chip away at the walls of prejudice. He reminded the hesitant leaders of humanity's own history, how they had survived countless threats, how they had been underestimated time and again, but rose stronger each time. He spoke of resilience, courage, and the power of unlikely allies joining together. Vexra, inspired by Eli's determination, found strength she hadn't known she possessed. Together, they started to unite a patchwork coalition of former enemies who had buried old grudges, outcast communities who knew what it was like to be left behind, and forgotten colonies ready to fight not just for themselves but for the future of all free beings. Each new ally brought unique skills, knowledge, and fierce determination to the growing cause. With every handshake, every promise of support, the hope that had seemed so distant began to grow brighter. Yet beneath the hope was the constant reminder that time was running out. The shadow of the Empire loomed ever closer, its vast fleets moving silently through space, ready to crush any resistance. Eli and Vexra knew that this fragile alliance might be the only chance to stop the coming storm. The princess's tears of desperation slowly turned into tears of determination, and Eli's once cautious heart burned with a newfound purpose. They were no longer just survivors. They were leaders of a resistance born from courage, trust, and the unyielding belief that even the most unlikely heroes could change the fate of the galaxy. The journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long while, they felt that victory might be possible, and that was enough to keep fighting. The day the invasion fleet arrived, the sky above the coalition's stronghold darkened with the massive shapes of enemy starships, their cold engines humming a terrible promise of destruction. Eli Novak stood at the command center, surrounded by a mix of alien commanders and human officers, all tense but determined. They were vastly outnumbered and outgunned, facing an enemy with weapons and technology far superior to their own. Yet what they lacked in power, they made up for with unity and fierce resolve. Eli's voice cut through the noise, clear and commanding, as he coordinated the defenses, weaving together the strengths of each species and drawing on every scrap of ingenuity they had. Vexra fought alongside him, no longer just the scared princess from before, but a leader whose knowledge of the enemy's tactics proved invaluable. Her species' unique technologies, long ignored and underestimated by others, suddenly became the coalition's secret weapon. Devices that manipulated energy in ways unfamiliar to their foes, systems that could disable advanced ships without destroying them, and shields that absorbed attacks rather than resisting them all. turned the tide bit by bit. The battle was brutal and chaotic, with moments where it seemed all hope might be lost, but Eli and Vexra never wavered. Each time the enemy pushed forward, the coalition responded with a fierce counterattack, born from courage and clever strategy. Vexra's presence on the battlefield inspired many who once doubted her, proving that true strength came from within, not from outward appearances. Her bravery and determination to protect her people and the allies she had found showed that honor and courage were far deeper than skin or scales. As starships clashed in the void and explosions lit the darkness like terrible fireworks, the coalition's spirit grew stronger. They fought not just for survival, but for the future of every world that refused to bow to tyranny. Eli's quick thinking and Vexra's insights turned what should have been a hopeless fight into a fierce stand. And when the dust finally began to settle, it was clear that though the battle was won, the war was far from over. But in that victory, no matter how small, lay the promise that unity in heart could defy even the greatest darkness. They had shown the galaxy that even the ugly princess could be a hero, and that sometimes the greatest strength came from those who were never expected to lead. The war was over, and the shadow of the invading empire had been pushed back into the dark reaches of space, but the true victory lay not only in the battlefield, but in what had been built from the ashes of fear and conflict. Vexra, once an outcast princess, burdened by sorrow and desperate pleas, returned to her homeworld, not just as a royal figure, but as a hero who had crossed the boundaries between worlds and brought together a coalition that many thought impossible. The people of Giran welcomed her with a mixture of awe and newfound respect, their eyes no longer clouded by the old prejudices against her appearance, but shining with pride in the courage she had shown. Her journey had proven that true leadership came from the heart and mind, not from how one looked. Eli Novak, the human captain who stood by her side through every danger and challenge, became a symbol of humanity's strength, an example of bravery and open-heartedness that spread across the galaxy like a warm light in the darkness. Thanks to their efforts, old rivalries began to fade as different species saw the power of unity and cooperation. The alliance forged in the heat of battle promised a new era, one where species would work together instead of against one another, where judgment would be based on character and deeds rather than appearances or ancient grudges. Vexra's tears, once heavy with fear and uncertainty, transformed into tears of hope and joy, reflecting the new possibilities now open to her people and to all those who had stood with them. A friendship had blossomed, one that reached beyond politics and alliances, rooted in trust and shared struggle. As the stars shimmered above her homeworld, Vexra and Eli looked toward the future, knowing that while challenges still awaited, they were no longer alone. Together, they had shown the galaxy that heroism was a light that came from the soul, bright enough to break through any darkness, and that sometimes the most unlikely heroes could inspire entire worlds to believe in a better tomorrow.